Buenos dias, world. Today I decided I was going to make a video about our days living in Germany because because I have a lot to talk about on that subject because we lived there for 6 years. I decided that I'm just gonna make that into like a little, I guess, like a little mini series, or just from time to time, talk about various things about what we experienced living there in Germany. Excuse me. But today, I will talk about how we wound up being sent to Germany. If you've followed me at all through this journey I've decided to take with YouTube, is you've probably realized that I work for the U.S. government, particularly the United States Army. I was in uniform for a little over 10 years, but I went civil service and continued working for the Army, but as a civilian, and that started in 2004. But in 2007, I deployed to Iraq for 180 days. And when I got back from that deployment, at the time I was assigned to what's called a depot. And this particular depot is in Alabama. When I got back to Alabama, my boss let me know that I had orders to be reassigned. And yes, when I say orders, I mean just like the military gets their orders. We operate the same way, just like the soldiers. So when I was told I was being reassigned, my orders initially were for a place called Redstone Arsenal, which is also in Alabama. So I was literally only going to be moving not even 3 hours north of where I was. The location I was at the time was called Anniston, Alabama, which they have a depot there that I worked at. But that was like on a Thursday. The next day I came in on a Friday in the morning, and my boss let me know again that that my orders had been amended. This time, instead of going to Redstone Arsenal and there in Alabama, she said, "You're going to Germany." And I was very surprised about this because like I mentioned earlier, I had been to Germany before, but as a soldier. Now I knew this time, going as a civilian, would have to be living, off post or off base, however you want to describe that. But also, a huge difference between my time before and this time. And this, by the way, was, if I didn't mention, it was 2007. I was married and with 2 stepkids. So I had to go home and break to my wife that we were going to be moving overseas, and I didn't know how she was going to take that because she had never been overseas before. I had, so I knew exactly what to expect. But when I told her, she was actually excited. She was ready to try, I guess, something new, experience something new. So that part worked out. It was still a little bit of a challenge adjusting to a new country, a new culture, all those things. I of course kind of knew it to expect because I lived in Germany before. But my wife and kids, though, were a different story. They kind of struggled at first, but After about, I don't know, 6 months or so, they were starting to get a handle on it, and I would say by a whole year had gone by, they had uh, they had pretty much adjusted fully, and there's other challenges too, like Americans have a school system for civilians and um, children of military personnel. So, but all those schools are, American ran. They have American teachers, principals, and all that kind of thing. So that part wasn't that big of a deal. But my wife, though, when she started working, some of the people in her office were not Americans; they were Germans. So she had to get used to, a different way of doing things. Which, at first, like I said, it was a challenge. But after she had been there a while, I would say she adjusted pretty nicely. There was certain things she never got used to, obviously, but I mean, if you've never even been out of the United States and suddenly you just move to another country, that's just the way things are going to be. You may never adjust to certain things, but she did, and I would say probably her biggest hurdle while we lived there was learning to drive in Europe, which is not as difficult as you would think, but I guess you could say the biggest challenge there is if you don't speak the language of the host country you're living in. That's probably the biggest hurdle. But luckily in Europe, most of the traffic signs are color coded or they have pictograms. So even if you don't know what the words mean, you can usually discern from the marking and the picture what the sign actually means. Unless it's just a sign with just a word on it, which, those are not that common, but for the most part, you can pretty much figure out what they mean. But you have to take a test, though, to get your permit. I mean, you still have to have a valid U.S. driver's license, but the U.S. government, through, like what they call a status of forces agreement, which, I mean, just shorten it to SOFA. The SOFA agreement tells you, what you're allowed to do in your host country, and the rules the German government set up was um, you had to have a valid driver's license, valid insurance from the country that you're from, but you had to take the permit to drive, and it's pretty much based on what the Germans have to learn for how they drive, but it's not just for Germany; it's all over Europe. But obviously, the permit is not valid for anywhere but the country that you're in. So you still have to have that, this valid stateside driver's license to drive in Europe. So if you don't have that and you try to drive around and you get caught, it's not going to be a good day for you. But anyway, the house we lived in, that took some a little bit of getting used to as well. But over time, it was just like living in any other house. It's just like the biggest differences between German houses and American houses is it's not as there's not as many differences as you would think. Um, Probably one of the biggest things Americans would notice inside of a German house, um, the appliances are much smaller When I mean appliances, I mean like a refrigerator, dishwasher, um, what you call it, washer and dryer. Those tend to be a lot smaller, especially the refrigerators. They're tiny compared to American ones. But one thing they do, and when you go into like a bedroom, something like that, they don't have built-in closets. They have what's called trunks. They're basically kind of like, I guess, like a portable wardrobe. You have those instead of closets. But the big thing I was going to mention was what's called built-in kitchens, or BIKs. Um, Here in the States, when you buy a house or build a house, the kitchen is built in with the house. Like, it comes with the house. But most residences in Germany, strangely enough, and I don't know why they do it this way, but a kitchen is not a permanent part of the structure. So if you move from one house to another, you take the whole kitchen with you. So I don't know why, but that's just the way they do it. So you can go on to like their version of like a Home Depot over there, which is, I don't remember that. I think it was named like Tomb or something like that. When you look in their listings, like for things for sale, like um, light bulbs and all that kind of thing, they actually have kitchens listed for sale. Like, it's, it says BIK, built-in kitchen. You can buy the entire kitchen and put it in your house. So, like I said, I don't know why they do it like that, but that's just the way it's done over there. But anyway, that's just like a really short synopsis of our initial landing in Germany. Like I said, I plan to kind of make this like into like a little series, where I'll talk about other things we experienced while over there. But that's it for this one. So have a good one, and we'll talk to you later.